Hey, what's up guys? Today we're gonna talk about a simple scalping strategy to use in the Forex market with the use of quote-unquote institutional concepts. Now again, doesn't mean I use the word simple. This is a simple task to do or a simple strategy to use. Again, the strategy is simple, but when you want to be a consistent, profitable trader, when you want trading as a career for the long term, then again, the starting phase is going to be difficult. There's nothing easy in this life. Doesn't mean I named it simple to grab some attention or to push it in the YouTube algorithm so I can gather new audience where I can teach them, hopefully give nuggets, educational nuggets for some of you guys, or for you guys to use in the future. Now, a simple, quote-unquote simple Forex scalping strategy. This is not going to be different with my other videos. It's the same thing, but we're going to dive in more on way more lower time frames or how I specifically scalp in the market. Now, we're currently on XAU USD. This is outside of my comfort zone. If you don't know that, I only trade EU and only look at EU right now. I'm still confused. While reviewing these charts, I'm still confused on how it looks. It looks ugly, but anyways, doesn't mean it looks ugly, then you can't trade it. Again, I know profitable traders, even not using institutional concepts, make profits consistently every single month. Now, again, what do we see XAU USD doing? Now, we have three simple criterias or three steps to follow in our strategy. So we look for order flow or the overall structure. Number two, we look for POIs or certain supply and demand zones. And number three, we look for confirmation. It's either wyckoff or a break of structure on way more lower time frames. Now, what do we see gold doing on the daily time frame? Let's just focus on this part of the price point. Now, I see gold continuing to the downside because if we look at this higher high, this could be a lower high, a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. As you can see, this lower low broke this previous lower low, meaning it's following the overall order flow of price on this specific point. And we see this as a lower high. Why is it called a lower high? Because again, it failed to break the previous lower high. If it went above it, then this could be a higher high. It either is a liquidity grab or a structural shift now to the bullish trend. Now, what do we see price continue to do? We see another break of structure here, creating another lower low, then another lower high. Why is it a lower high again? Because it failed to break this point over here. Then as you can see, we are currently ranging, I believe these are equal lows. So that could be liquidity lows that we might grab in the future, since overall on gold or XAU USD, we are still currently on a bearish trend, as you can see over here. So what do we do currently at this point? So remember again, we are still in rule number one in our simple scalping strategy. We're still at our rule number one or criteria number one, looking for structure. Again, we need to do top-down analysis to have a clear vision on lower time frames to look for, so we can create stories or reasons why, let's say on the 1 minute, it's forming a bullish move to a bullish trend or a bullish move to the upside. Why is it doing that? Then we can create stories on why by using higher time frame analysis. For example, like this one, as you can see on the daily, we are still on a bullish move up. Hence, possibly why the 1 minute or let's say on lower time frames, it's still on a bullish move to the upside, since there's a bullish move on lower time frames here. Now, so currently we are in a range. Now, what do I expect gold to be doing? Now, this either is a creation of liquidity from these highs and from these highs, because price moves through liquidities even on lower time frames. Now, the two simple ways I can mark this out for you guys is, let me just clear this up for a bit. So the simple two ways I can mark this up is we have this lower high and a lower low. Now, either price taps in, then drops, meaning tapping on supply zones here, mitigating some supply zones before going lower, at the same time grabbing this triple top whatever resistance zone over here. Or the other thing that could happen is this could price is tapping to a supply zone over here right now, then push to the downside. That is my two outlooks on XAUUSD at the moment, when putting in mind a bearish bias. Now, doesn't mean we're in a bearish bias on higher time frames, doesn't mean we can look for buys. This is where the fun or the scalping strategy or scalping comes in. Now, currently, what do I expect price? We can mark up this supply zone here, and we can possibly mark up this other supply zone over here. Now again, why did I mark up this supply zone here? Because on lower time frames, this looks like a lower low, lower high, lower low. Why is it lower low? Because it broke this previous lower low, lower high. Now we're expecting price to continue to the downside. Why is it not doing, or why is it not breaking it immediately on this previous low? It's possibly creating liquidity, or again, we have to put in mind that another thing that could happen is price tap into the supply zone here, then continue to the downside. Or again, I could be wrong. This is why we risk manage. This is why we have a strategy where we can imply in our trading. Because price doesn't mean we're overall biased. Price could literally break this liquidity high over here. But let's keep focusing on this one. That's why I marked up this supply zone over here, so we can look for scalp entries or buys or sells. Sells to either trail aggressively or partial, since again, this could be a high probability for price to go up here. So we can trail or stop, manage our trades aggressively to maybe target these supplies demand zones over here for price to tap in, then continue to the upside. That's another valid thing that it could happen. At the same time, if it does that, price reacts on that supply zone, goes lower, it's creating more liquidity on this resistance zones. So overall, what do we see on the daily? We want either price can bounce from this supply zone here or here. Now we go on lower time frames. Let's go on the 4R. Let's go down slowly. Now, what do we see the 4R doing? Again, we are still in criteria 1, which we are looking for is the order flow or the structure of the market, since structure is your friend. As you can see, what do we see price doing? A higher high breaks this previous higher low. So we create a lower low, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Then price breaks this previous lower high. Now we're shifting to the upside. Now this could be a higher high. Now we can expect a higher low, then another higher high. Now this remember earlier that I pointed out we can look for sells to scalp into, have our take profit on these demand zones here, then continue to the upside, because as you can see what I marked up here, we are expecting price, since it shifted its order flow over here, we are now on a bullish order flow since it broke this previous lower high. Now we can expect to continue to the upside. Now, since we are adding confluence from our daily to our 4R, since our 4R again doesn't mean we're in a bullish move to the upside or a bullish trend, doesn't mean price doesn't want to go down. Again, price needs to do a pullback. Hence, as you can see, even though we're in a bearish trend at this point, we see price doing a pullback, tap in supply zones over here, then continue to the downside. Now we can see that happening, the same thing happening on this point over here. Price either tap on this supply zones here. We can maybe partial on the supply zones here. Either price can tap on this, demand zone, tap on that demand zone, tap on this demand zone, then continue to the upside, or demand zone, continue to the downside, creating a little bit of liquidity. Now, we're adding confluence again on our higher time frame analysis. We can mark this up. Demand zones over here. Now we can look on lower time frames. This is where the scalping goes. Now I aggressively jumped on higher time frames, but as you can see, if we just zoom out, we can see other time frame structure. Lower low, higher high, higher low, higher high, higher low, higher high. Now we could expect another higher low over here. So we're still expecting price to do a pullback at some point over here. Now again, we're still on step 1. At the same time, we are adding step 2 slowly on our analysis. As you can see, these blue zones over here as our POIs or our supply and demand zones. Now, as you can see, if we see a structural break, if we see price doing this on lower time frames on this point, if we see a structural break, now why is it doing that? It's probably wanting, again, we are just speculating the market. It's probably a liquidity grab to continue to the upside or a structural shift to go to the downside. Then why does it want to go to the downside? This is where the storytelling comes in. Why does it want to go to the downside? As you can see, we have demand zones here, and price needs to do a pullback at some point from this impulsive move over here. So price pullback, tap on this demand zone, continue to the upside. Also, we can look for buys again here if price taps in. If we see a clear break of structure, something like that, spring, break of structure from these highs, and continue to the upside, we can enter from this demand zone over here. Or if price fails to give confirmation on that point, we can then look for confirmation here to the upside. Again, we can trade both ways of the market. We can either trade sell here, buy here. If it does a pullback, we can sell here again, then buy here again, sell here again, tap on the supply zone, and buy here again, lower. That's a difficult thing to do, but again, there's nothing easy if you want to be a professional trader. Now, I explained already, if we see a structural break over there, now this might be a shift to the downside. As you can see, if we just zoom in, we can now see the lower time frame structure. So it tapped into our POI, this blue zone over here, this large blue zone. As you can see, I see structure doing, what structure is doing is higher high, higher low, higher high, possibly a higher low, then a continuation for another higher high. So what we can do again doesn't mean, since we believe in the fractal nature is what happens on way more higher time frames happens on lower time frames. Again, do you remember on the 1R, I believe, or on the 4R, we marked up these zones over here because we want price to tap into those zones and continue to the upside. So we can look for buys over here. Now, it's the same thing on way more lower time frames. As you can see, we have structure, overall structure, POIs, then we wait for confirmations. It's the same thing here. What do we see structure doing? What do we see structure doing? Creating higher highs, higher lows. Now we're expecting another higher low with either on this very tapped in this very refined demand zone for price to tap in, continue to the upside, or it could break lower. But again, if you look for confirmations here, wait, let me just clear this up, my bad. If you look for confirmations on this point, higher low, higher high, so we have, let's mark up this rough markup of this demand zone over here. Now, if we look for confirmation, a break of structure, then we can ask ourselves, is this break of structure over here a liquidity grab, or is it a shift of order flow to now price to continue to the upside? Now, what we can do is we can look for buys over here. If we see confirmation, then we can target these highs over here, since we want price to continue overall on a bullish move to the upside, specifically on this lower time frames. Now, if it stops us out, this is why we risk manage. If it gives us confirmation, then stops us out. Then if it breaks this low point over here, then what we can do is now shift our bias again on our scalping bias. Break on this point, now a structural shift. Now we can expect price to tap in this supply zone over here, then continue to the downside. Now we can look for a confirmation again on these supply zones over here. Then if it gives us a good confirmation, then we can look for sells over here. Then it's the same thing over and over and over again. Even on higher time frames, it's the same thing. Again, structure, POI, then we look for confirmations on these zones. Now, I hope you guys learned something about scalping. Again, it's the same thing on other time frames. Then let's try to extend this or go on way more lower time frames. Now, currently we want price to tap in this refined demand zone here before continuing to the upside, right? Let me just clear this blue box over here. And price to tap in this demand zone here, continue to the upside. What we can do now is look for scalping opportunities to look for sells to bring price here lower. Now what we can do, let's just go on the 15 second. It's more clear. Now as you can see, I don't know if this will hold. This could stop you out again. You don't need to win 100% of the time. The important thing is to have consistent gains every month for the long term. Again, this is a long-term thing. Imagine or think about the long term. 5 years from now, 10 years from now. You have to imagine that. You don't need to think about the next 2 months, the next 3 months. When can I buy a Lambo in the next 5 months? That's not how trading works. You need to think. Trading is a business, a long-term business. Now, as you can see, what we see structure doing, lower low, lower high, lower low. Why is it the lower low? Why is it the lower low? Since it broke this previous lower low over here. Lower high. Why is it the lower high? Because it fails to break the previous lower high. As you can see, break again, lower low. Now we can look for either supply zones here or supply zones here for price to tap in. As you can see, price tapped in. Now this could be a go up here. What price can do is go up here, tap on supply zones here, then continue to the downside. Now, if you look for confirmation here, then we can look for sells to again, remember, bring it to the demand zone over here. Now, since we believe in the fractal nature, as you can see, we achieve a possibly, again, this could not hold. We are just speculating, but if we speculate, this could be a 9-to-1 on lower time frames. Now, imagine using this on higher time frames where you can swing trade. So you can either swing trade on this specific strategy or go way more lower to scalp it. Now, we can look for confirmations there to continue to the downside or wait for this structural break over here. Let me just clear this drawings out. If you see a structural break over here, then we can look for a short on supply zones somewhere here. Short it, look for confirmation again, then continue to the downside, having your TP either on this demand zone or on this low over here. So I hope you guys learned something new. It's the same thing, but I hope you guys learned some new information. So thanks for watching. See you soon.